Let's start with a little bit of presentation. My name is Damián Avila. You have my Twitter handle there. Also, the GitHub account if you want to see some of the things I am doing. And the third line, you have the URL for my blog. I usually write, not too much lately, but I usually write some interesting stuff, I think. At least people tell me that. Okay. I am senior software developer at Anaconda, and an open source developer centered essentially in the Jupyter ecosystem. Core contributor for Jupyter and Jupyter team consent member. I have been involved with Jupyter for about 6 years. But well, today the idea is to talk about RISE and some of the latest things about RISE. Who knows RISE here? Okay. Who has used RISE in the past? Okay, great. Well, we can probably go faster with this section. Essentially, RISE stands for Reveal Jupyter IPython slideshow extension when we had the IPython notebook. Right now it's the Jupyter notebook. First, once upon a time, the first idea was to develop a kind of converter for MV-convert to export your notebook into a static HTML slideshow based on Reveal.js, and that is essentially available in MV-convert. But the problem with that approach is that we have a static slideshow, and a lot of people wanted to have this, a kind of live slide. So after some time, we developed RISE. You don't have anymore the static slideshow. You can essentially execute code and make anything that you can actually do and show in the notebook. It's a notebook rendered as a Reveal.js slideshow, but in a slidey way. That's the main idea. And the idea behind that is to have that interactivity that the static presentation didn't provide. But essentially, what is RISE at its core? Essentially, we use Reveal.js as a framework to create the slideshow. It's a pretty popular JS library to make presentations. There are a lot of more actually interested as well, but we chose I chose that one because of the 2D nature, which for me was interesting. But you can probably develop something similar with other JS slideshow machineries. Reveal.js essentially understands a specific HTML structure and makes all the magic behind to show us the slideshow. Obviously, I am presenting this with RISE, so this is a live demo, which is not recommended, but that's okay for this. On the other side, to make RISE work, we need essentially some kind of signal to give Reveal.js the information about how we are going to build our slideshow, the structure of the presentation we are writing. And the other part is essentially what RISE does, which is rearranging of the cells accordingly to that information we provide, and provide something that Reveal.js can understand and modify on the fly. This is something that I mentioned before, but it's important to know that RISE is just another view of the notebook. It's the notebook itself, but rendered at another view. So anything that works as a corollary, anything that works in the notebook, it should work in RISE. If that is not the case, you should report that, and we will try to fix it as soon as possible. probably as soon as possible is is not a short amount of time, but we will try. So please report any issue you have. Well, essentially, I think this is important because I wrote here that RISE provides a simple way to get the presentation view, and I think that probably the popularity of RISE is because it's targeted to some group of people that want to write or want to share their content in their notebooks and show that in a slidey way without too much work. And I think RISE fixed that space well, and this is why people is actually using. And we have the combined power of two things, essentially all the things that Reveal.js bring to the world, if you want, we use in RISE, and all the machinery and all the power of the Jupyter notebook. So there you have some links for the documentation and the repository in case you don't know. But essentially, that was a kind of intro I wanted to give you. And now essentially talk about what are the goals for this presentation. RISE started about, I think, 4 years ago, so it has evolved a lot. And lately, in the last year, we have several contributions for some people, particularly one people that is very active right now. And we now provide some new capabilities that probably a lot of you will find useful to make your presentations in the future. So the main idea is for the people not having any experience with RISE, is a simple comment about how to install and use RISE. Then I will follow with how to customize it. I think that is probably something that people don't know too much about, and it is interesting because you can go beyond the simple slideshow. You can notice here that I have a background images. I have some other things there that in the native or in the native view you don't see. They are customizations, and I will speak a little bit about that. Then about how to get PDF from the slideshow. That is important for a lot of people to share that content. People can use MB-convert and convert their notebooks to the static representation. But a lot of people prefer PDF. And Reveal.js over the years provided some ways to have or to output or to produce a PDF, but for a long time that was broken. Right now it's actually working pretty well, but there are new development not only in Reveal.js but also outside Reveal.js to make that happen. So I will talk about that. Then how to use the new chalkboard capabilities that I think a lot of people will find useful, and a little surprise as well. And finally, in the last minutes, I would like to talk a little bit about the migration of the existing extension into a JupyterLab-RISE extension to provide this kind of experience in JupyterLab. Yeah, so I will talk a little bit about that and how is the progress so far and what we need for the future. Okay, installation is pretty simple with Conda install C Conda Forge RISE. I put a note there because previously I was producing all the packages by myself and were located in my channel under anaconda.org. But since some releases ago, we started to make our builds in Conda Forge. So I recommend to go there to download and install RISE. Alternatively, you can use pip to install RISE, but you need a second step, which is essentially installing or copying all the static content from the package into the proper place where the notebook can take that content and make it available for the extension. The two options works well. The first one is probably better because it's less work. Usage. I will go very fast with this because a lot of people know how to use RISE, but essentially I will show. I can exit here. I wrote my presentation here. If you go to the view menu, or in the menu, in the view drop-down folder, you can see there in the cell toolbar and slideshow submenu that a specific option adds a box here at the top right of every cell, where you can actually tell RISE if you want to make that cell a slide, a sub-slide, which the sub-slide is essentially a secondary slide in the other direction of the linear direction we have in the presentation. It's taking advantage of the 2D arrangement of Reveal.js. And you have some other things like fragments to make some, or to highlight some ideas, the possibility to skip the cell if you don't want to show that cell in your presentation, and notes if you want to make some notes. But as probably some of you know, the speaker notes doesn't work in RISE yet. Well, essentially, when you set up this thing, you just press the button, and you have the slideshow. It's pretty simple. Okay, customizations. You can do a lot of customizations. You can customize the theme, the transition between the slideshows. There is an auto-launch presentation mode, which is essentially allows you to start the slideshow as soon as you open the notebook. That is interesting for the use case in Binder, for instance, if you want to push some content and show and use the extension live, you can put in your or you can set up the things. I will mention how, but you can set up the things to start or to auto launch the presentation as soon as the binder starts. You can tell RISE where to start the presentation, if it is in the select cell or at the top of the first cells. You have automatic selection of cells. This is something that we introduced in some recent versions, because there was a kind of unsync between the selection of the cells that we are writing and how the slideshow progressed. Right now that is solved, and by default we sync the two events. So when you switch to a new slide, there is an auto selection for the first cells of that slide, and that is very useful. You can check slide size. The vertical scroll bar is not by default, but it is available for people that want to put more content in their slideshow. Or in one specific slide, and there is a scroll bar to the right. You can modify some of the native Reveal.js settings. Reveal.js has a lot of possibilities of configurations, of different configurations, and we expose some of them in RISE, not all of them, but some of them, and you have those available. And then I will talk, essentially I will talk about these three things at the three last points. One is the decoration, or the possibility to change the background, to add some other stuff at the header, at the footer. There is another option to make more aggressive customizations. How to add custom CSS to make your presentations nicer, and some ideas about the keyboard shortcuts. But before entering into that, it's important to tell you, I think, where you can set up all these config options. And we have different ways to set up that configuration. One of these ways is using some config files that are essentially written as JSON. In this case, I use a little bit of Python to write a JSON file, which is something that the notebook understands, and then can pass the information that we want to use for our presentation. That is probably something that not a lot of people like to play with, because there is some details. So there is another tool called NV Extension Configurator, which is essentially a kind of UI that allows you to change, to enable and disable extensions, and to change some of the options. This is provided by the IPython contrib repo, which is a repo containing a lot of extensions. And since they have a lot of extensions, they need some UI way to help people to enable those extensions. If you can install the NV Extension Configurator. In some releases ago, we did the changes to support that. You can install it with Conda, or alternatively with pip. It's pretty simple. And after installing, you will see here a new tab called NV Extension. There you will see a lot of extensions if you have installed several extensions before, but in this case I'm showing RISE. And here you can select, you have the auto launch option here, the start the slideshow in the selected position. You have all the options that are available right now, and an easy way to customize it. That is interesting for people that don't want to play with the plain JSON and config files. But additionally, we have another layer of configuration, if you want, because this NV configurator and all the JSON config stuff will modify all your presentations, but maybe you can make a specific change in one of the presentations. So in the notebook metadata, you can essentially define there a key RISE, and you can essentially put there all the options you want. So that specific notebook will use those options as the highest hierarchy. And that is something useful if you want to have some specific customizations. It's pretty easy to go to the, I don't know if you want how to access the edit, the notebook metadata, but essentially in the edit menu you will find an edit notebook metadata, and you will find there a kind of JSON thing that you can modify. Okay. Let's go a little bit faster. How we can decorate our slides. And I think this is important because a lot of people like the simplicity to have a slideshow view without doing too much work, essentially just signaling which cells you want as slides, and you are done. But a lot of people asked me about some ways to modify the extension to catch up and to add some common things like backgrounds, headers, if you want to put your company there, footers, that kind of stuff. So we provide that as well in a recent release. You can define, you can put that as options, like the ones I described before, essentially under the RISE thing or in your config files or in the MV configurator extension. You can put there a back image, a footer, and a header, which is essentially what I did in this presentation. You can be more imaginative than me, probably, and make a lot of interesting things with this. In this case, I just use powered by Jupyter background images and my Twitter handle and a little bit more and no more than that. But along with this, we provide some way to add a custom CSS. You can put in your directory a RISE CSS file containing all your rules. And that will affect all the notebooks in your directory. But you can also add a specific CSS, which is the notebook name, that CSS, that will essentially affect that specific notebook and not others. So in this case, I have this file, this JupyterCon 18 CSS, which is essentially doing some stuff over the header, the footer, and the back image. So with the HTML and the CSS, you can probably do a lot of nice things, and I think that is probably useful for a lot of people that want to make the presentation more richer, visually speaking. Okay. One more thing: Jupyter Actions registered by RISE or custom keyboard shortcuts. Jupyter provides some machinery. I am talking about the legacy notebook right now. In JupyterLab, there is also something close to this, but that's another topic. Jupyter, the Jupyter notebook, the traditional Jupyter notebook, provides some ways to customize your keyboard shortcuts. And you can actually modify those things from RISE itself, and we are currently using that machinery. So you can actually have some custom keyboard shortcuts for RISE to enter or exit the slideshow, to toggle the slide or pseudo slide or fragment, so you don't need to go anymore to the cell toolbar and modify the thing there. You can just use the keyboard event to make the change, and that is pretty useful. There are some other things that we registered there, but they are not defined. But you can define it as you want. But how you can modify this? Essentially, you can do it by JSON. You can modify the notebook metadata. That is one way. You can add a custom JS that Jupyter Notebook understands and lets you modify. But probably the most simple thing is go into the Jupyter mainstream keyboard shortcut editor. That is something like this. If you want to help and edit keyboard shortcut, you will see all the keyboard shortcuts that the notebook is defining right now. And if you go to the latest rows, you will see there the toggle slide, the toggle to the slide, the slideshow, and you can change there or add another shortcut that maybe is better for you. So I think that this UI, thank you. I think this UI way to change some of the shortcuts for RISE are pretty interesting and probably useful for people. PDF exportation. We have two methods right now to make to make a PDF from our presentation. One is using the cosine, the MV-convert. Essentially, you use MV-convert to convert your IPMV file to an static slideshow, and then you can essentially you can add a print PDF to the URL that will add some specific CSS that Reveal is injecting, so you can actually print the PDF from Chrome or your browser using the command options. This is working pretty well, but it will show you the slideshow as the static representation you have. It's not exactly the same view of RISE, because there are some tiny differences. The other method that is very interesting is using one library called DeckTape. DeckTape actually supports the conversion of HTML slideshows into PDFs for multiple JS libraries. Reveal.js is one of them, and RISE is one of them as well. The author wrote a plugin to make easy to create PDF from RISE presentations. So you can install it with npm. We can talk later how to do that. It's not complex. You have to make sure that the auto launch option is disabled for now. Right now, the master, this guy has a fix for that, but in the release version, if you have the auto launch option enabled, when the plugin runs, we'll try to push the button and will exit from the slideshow view, so you don't have a good PDF. But that will be fixed in the next DeckTape. For now, you only need to disable auto launch. And essentially, you pass the RISE plugin here, and you tell the notebook URL. One thing I didn't mention, you need to start the notebook server. But you don't even need to open the slideshow. You only need to start the server. You pass the Jupyter notebook URL and an output file. More concretely, it looks something like this. Be sure to put your token here and here, I think. Okay. Because otherwise it will not work. I can explain later if we have time, why not. But be sure to put the token. The token, you can get the token when you start your notebook server. That is informed, and you have another ways to get it. And this will output a very good PDF from RISE. It's essentially taking off some of the buttons you see there, and the quality is pretty amazing as far as I saw. Okay, chalkboard's capabilities, and this is something new. I think this is important from the educational perspective, because a lot of people probably on top of the slideshow want to make annotations or something like that. So you will notice here at the left and at the bottom there are new icons. If you touch in the second one, you have essentially a checkboard where you can do and explain things. And I think this is useful, but I think it's more useful the other icon. If you press that, you can do annotations here. And those annotations could be essentially downloaded as JSON files. We are using a plugin called Reveal.js chalkboard, and they are doing all the magic, and we are integrating that into RISE. I think this is pretty interesting for people, probably very useful. Okay, this surprise is, speak or not, is working. right now. Yeah. It's a first iteration, but the things are working at least. You have here the main slideshow, the next slideshow, and the notes tell people about the notes level cells. That is something that I mentioned before. We can probably we will probably customize this to make it better, because maybe the top right thing needs to be zoom in or zoom out to actually see all the slideshow and not a part of it. So probably this will get some other iterations, but right now it's working, and it's 33 minutes. Okay, I'm pretty close, I think. Okay, I will go away from here. This is something I want to mention, but because I think it's important from the usability perspective. The notebook 5.6 add a prompt run button. You can see it here. If you press this, you can run that cell. A lot of people found annoying this button, and in master is currently removed. But in the RISE use case, I think it's pretty nice, and it makes sense. So I will make sure that in the next release, when the next version of the notebook is released, we will release a version of RISE that will add that button again. Because right now it's essentially hidden in the master branch. It's essentially hidden, and you can see it if you see the notebook in your cells or in a tablet or using media-rich CCS kind of things. So we can use that CCS and make it available in RISE, and I think that is important and probably very useful, because you can use your laptop and run things there. Okay, I want to mention that because some people open an issue in RISE about the availability of this button and the hiding in the next version. So the idea was share knowledge about that, so we can use it. Okay, that is the important thing, probably, or one of the important things. The new release is out. Is RISE 5.4.1. It contains the chalkboard capabilities and the speaker notes. Remember that these are first iteration on that, so I encourage you to try to open issues, because there will be issues about that, and that will allow us to shape the thing better in next versions. There is that is important. There is no 5.4.0 because it was broken, but there is no need to tell anyone about that. And something I want to talk a little bit is about the JupyterLab integration, essentially. Currently, I have a POC living in this pull request, and I can show you a little bit about that. This is JupyterLab. You can see here a button. If you go there, you have an structure. You have the RISE experience. But this is this needs a lot of work yet, because it's only recognized, for instance, it's only recognized the slide cells, but not the other cells. So it needs some work to make it something that we could actually release. So, but it's working nice, I think. And one of the things I think is important about that is that having RISE in JupyterLab allow us to explore other spaces. If you open a new view of the notebook here, let me show you something like this, maybe. The interesting thing is that you can probably change this to high, or let me see, print high, oops. And I will change that live in the slideshow, in RISE, because those two documents are understanding or are connected to the same model. So eventually we can come up with something that will allow us to design the slideshow in a more interactive way. I think that is a lot of potential for people that want to make their presentation more complex. And I think that opens a lot of space to explore. So we need to put more work on make RISE finally happen on JupyterLab, but we are on road. Okay, I don't have too much time about this, so essentially help is I encourage you to try to help us. If you know about JupyterLab extensions, that will help us. If you want to contribute to the current JupyterLab, to the current RISE extension, that will be helpful as well, because if other people work on that, I can work on the JupyterLab extension. So any help, not only writing code, documentation, ideas, and issues that you have, that is very welcome. Discussion, I already talked about this. I want to thank all the RISE users and contributors and the Jupyter community, Anaconda that support me to be here, and Daniela and Facundo, my partner and my son. Okay, we have probably questions or time for some questions. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah.
So, can you explain what the difference between PDF and what's the reason for that?
Sorry, I didn't hear. The difference?
So the difference between print PDF mode and Vector.
Okay.
See how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And I have that.
Yeah.
Support for widgets.
Okay. Well, we have two questions. Essentially, the first one is the difference between the print PDF option and the deck tape option. The deck tape option is pretty good and better than the print PDF. The print PDF is essentially applying CSS over your slideshow, your static slideshow that you got with MVConvert, and you print that with the common browser. Instead, deck tape, as long as I know, it is rendering every slide using a Chrome driver below and taking I don't know, say picture, taking information about every slide and building your PDF with that. The quality of the PDF generated by the deck tapes is far better than the other, in my experience. And about the widget, we actually support widgets as far as I know. If something is not working, you should open an issue about that, but it should work. In fact, in some other conference, I have shown some widgets, but it should work. If it doesn't work, you should report it. More questions? Yeah. That would be something, yeah. That would be something, yeah. Yeah, I think we can do something like that. People would probably find that very useful, I think, because otherwise it needs to go to all the other configuration things, and that is not a proper UI probably, and Excel is a better UI for the user, so
Well, to the widget storage, there is going to actually pop up a widget that as you move through the presentation,
Mm-hmm.
continue to update that.
Yeah. Okay. More questions? Yeah.
I'm curious to know if you can time the slides at all, so that you don't have to manually.
Yes, Reveal.js not by default, but it provides some options to make the thing to make the slideshow run automated, and you can customize that. I don't think that we expose that from RISE, but it should be pretty trivial. So it's just probably adding one line of code. So if it doesn't work for you, just or open an issue about that, and we will provide that. I think that is important and useful, because we don't surface all the reveal options, because there are multiple options. We only surface what we think people use. So see, if some people use that that option, we need to provide it. Yeah. Okay. No more time? Okay. Thank you.